Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite Spider-Man movies. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is Pop Culture Philosophers, and I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite Spider-Man movies. Why? Because there's a new Spider-Man movie coming out this week. I'm so excited. I'm going to watch it on Friday afternoon. I got my tickets for it. And I hope that this list will change with the addition of this newest Spider-Man movie, No Way Home. If you want my full thoughts on that movie, by the way, I'll be talking about it this upcoming Sunday night on Rockin Robbie Live at 7 p.m. Central Time. I'll be doing it like an hour or two, something like that. But before that movie drops, I wanted to go ahead and submit what my current top 5 favorite Spider-Man movies are. Let's get right into it, and I think you might be a little surprised. The surprise is at number 5. It's SpiderMan III, y'all. Seriously, I love Sam Raimi. I love Sam Raimi so much. And let me go ahead and tell you this. Spider-Man 3 is not a good movie. But this is my personal favorites, okay? I love this movie. I think this movie's better than both Andrew Garfield films. I think this movie is better than Far From Home. I'm really hoping, obviously, that No Way Home somehow kind of can kick this off of the top 5, but I like this movie. I remember when it came out, all the hype built up. Spider-Man 1 and 2 were phenomenal, and then we were leading into part 3, and yeah, we were getting Sandman, and that wasn't that exciting, but we were getting Venom, and I was so freaking pumped. This was back in the day where I would, just live and die with every bit of information that came out, every promotional material. I remember when this movie came out, I was in West Virginia recording the album for The Basement Show, and we don't have 7-Elevens here where I'm from in Alabama. We don't have 7-Elevens, but we had 7-Elevens up there, and they were doing these Spider-Man 3 Slurpee glasses or Slurpee cups, and I made sure to go and get every single frickin' one of them. Don't have those anymore. We gotta find those on eBay, hunt it down. Anyway, this movie was a very big disappointment as far as Venom went, right? Venom was kind of shoehorned into the movie, doesn't really quite work right, but Thomas Hayden Church, I think, as Sandman, made that character way more believable and way more, relatable than I thought we were going to get. Yeah, there's some weird stretches in this movie. In fact, you could just call this Spider-Man 3 the weird stretch. But I love some of those weird stretches. It's kind of fun in a cheesy, kind of goofy kind of way. It's a movie that didn't work, was pretty bad, but somehow, especially with the tinge of nostalgia, for me, has come back around to being one of those good, bad movies, if that makes sense. I know I'm in the minority here. I think Topher Grace did an amazing job as Eddie Brock for what he was given. Not a good movie, but something I still like. At number 4, we've got Spider-Man II. Now, I know that this is a lot of people's favorite Spider-Man movie, but for me, it's good. It's solid. I don't quite like it as much as the first one, because the first one just feels so classic, so Ditko inspired, but this one's great. You got Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. You've got better special effects. You got better pacing. You got a more dynamic film than you did in the first one. So I understand why most people really, really sink their teeth into this one, but I'm loving it. You know, I haven't mentioned it yet, but Tobey Maguire absolutely nails that 60s era Peter Parker, 100%. And you can tell that Sam Raimi is going for that kind of a vibe. Alfred Molina does a great job of Doc Ock, though I do feel like they kind of made him too relatable. That was one thing. Okay, so in Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, not very likable, right? But with Sandman, with Doc Ock, Sam Raimi's trying to make us relate to some of these characters, so I appreciated what they did with the character of Doc Ock, though I would have preferred more of a villainous approach, but you cannot deny how awesome that subway train scene is, how awesome that fight on the rooftop is, or on the roof, or on the building, the side of the building, I should say, where Spider-Man and Doc Ock are just going about it. Aunt May's involved. It gets a little weird. The CG gets a little unclear there, but this is still a super solid movie, picking up on the momentum from the first one, improving on some things, and to me, it doesn't quite live up to the original, but it's one of the greatest comic book sequels we've ever gotten. Spider-Man 2's got to make it on the list. At number 3, I'm going Into the Spider-Verse. This is an animated film, but yo, it slaps. This film really freaking works, man. So it doesn't even really focus that much on Peter Parker, mostly, of course, on Miles Morales, a little bit on Gwen Stacy in the multiverse as Spider-Gwen, but I love it. The animation in this film is some of the best animation I've seen in a movie, period. Me and my homie Brooks, y'all know him, Station Brooks, we went and watched this film in 3D. It was at our old theater before it got torn down. It was like a week into the film, like nobody was there in the theater, and I was like, yeah, let's pay the extra money, let's see it in 3D. I am so glad I did. The way this film was animated, using different comic book styles and backgrounds, yo, the 3D on this one was absolutely freaking phenomenal. Miles Morales is a really exciting character. Gwen Stacy's got the best Spider-Man costume we've ever gotten as Spider-Gwen. And having them work together, as well as an older version of Peter kind of being like a failed mentor, but going through his own hero's journey later in the game after he's already completed several hero's journeys, that was a really fun bit. And if you look at the movie, you can see that that version of Peter Parker, though not quite Tobey Maguire-esque, is kind of that Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, right? So it was a nice, like, passing of the torch. I'm really excited about the sequel. It looks like they're going crazier, zanier into the different styles that they're going to be representing. Yo, we got Spider-Ham in here. That's one of my favorite characters. Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham. That was one of my favorite books when I was a kid. That was like one of my first favorite comic books. In fact, if you would have asked me back in the day, Robbie, what's your favorite comic book? When I'm like 5 or 6 years old, I would have totally told you Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Ham. Then you got Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir. You play it for jokes, and it works, man. The different styles, it works. But one of my favorite bits in any Spider-Man movie is when he's like, sometimes I just burn a candle and hold my hand over the flame just so I can feel something. Like, dude, that works so well. I know this is a lot of people's favorites. It's fantastic. It's got beautiful animation. It's got a great story, great new iterations of the Spider-Man mythology introduced to the mass populace. Yo, this movie's awesome. At number 2, we got Spider-Man Homecoming. This is the first Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland. He had already made his appearance in Captain America Civil War. Honorable mention to Civil War. Like, if I could have counted Captain America Civil War as a Spider-Man movie, SpiderMan 3 would not have been in this top 5. You know what I'm saying? I think Tom Holland does an excellent job playing the ultimate version of Peter Parker. More integrated with the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. More youthful, more dynamic, more hip, more fresh, more of today's generation, right? And I love it. I think Tom Holland plays an amazing Peter Parker, even in Far From Home, which for me didn't make this list. I was disappointed by the sequel, but Homecoming is not only one of my favorite Spider-Man movies, it's one of my favorite MCU films. You'll know I dropped my top 10 MCU films movie, and Homecoming was on there. To be able to take the Vulture and make the Vulture, who has always been incredibly lame, so lame, they've tried to replace Vulture with different versions so many times, including a younger version of himself. I think that, that's a weird era of Spider-Man, some of that post Maximum Carnage, Clone Saga, Bagley Amazing Run, like some weird stretches in there. But aside from that, making Vulture threatening villain was absolutely fantastic. Of course, that's aided by Michael Keaton. Best eyebrows in Hollywood. Let's just be honest with that. Like, can we just be honest with each other on that? But yo, Vulture was great. I love how they kind of tweaked and played with our expectations. We've gotten so much of the same familiar Spider-Man story through so many of these different movies. To do things a little bit different, to not focus in on the origin, on the Uncle Ben aspect, I thought was a rather bold approach, and I think it worked. This Spider-Man is both quippy and he's action-packed, and he still is that nerd who is just plagued with responsibility. And of course, tying him into the larger MCU doesn't hurt. Tom Holland, I want at least 3 more Spider-Man movies from him after this one. I think he deserves it. I think we deserve it. And Spider-Man Homecoming, fantastic, comes in at number 2. And at number 1 couldn't be anything else. It's Spider-Man, the original film from Sam Raimi, starring Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe, Kirsten Dunst, Bruce Campbell. Yes, I consider Bruce Campbell as a starring role in this film. I love this film. Okay, so you got to go back in time. Was it 2002 or whatever? Let's go back. How far back in time? And Spider-Man came out, and we had the X-Men movie. We had some really... Well, we've had Blade, we've had Spawn, we've had The Shadow, we've had TMNT, we've had some decent comic book movies and some not so good ones. But yo, this one made the broke the mold of the time and set the new mold. There would be no MCU without this film. You could travel that back and say there'd be no MCU without X-Men. There'd be no MCU without Blade. There'd be no MCU without Batman. There'd be no MCU without Superman. Let's go back to Superman real quick. Superman by Richard Donner was such an amazing movie because it just hit at the right time, gave us effects that we had never seen on screen before, and gave us the entire supporting cast of that original Superman movie are some amazing actors delivering some top-notch performances. You know what that reminds me of? Spider-Man. Come on. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, absolutely awesome. What's his name? I can't remember. Robertson, what's Bill? I can't remember his name right now. The cat that played Uncle Ben in this movie nailed it. There has not been a movie done in live-action Spider-Man's world that nails the theme of Spider-Man, that great power, responsibility, that nails the relationship between Ben and Peter and the tragedy of Uncle Ben's death. Nobody has done that better than this first one by Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi kind of holding back his style to be able to deliver something that would make a lot of money for its time and that would be one of the most monumental blockbuster films in our lifetimes. Absolutely 100%. And then you've got Willem Dafoe playing Green Goblin. Yeah, the suit wasn't the best. It was a little Power Rangers at times when he's talking wearing the mask, where he's like, let me tell you something, Spider-Man. It gets a little hokey with that, but that performance by Willem Dafoe works. Literally, all you got to do is paint this dude's face green and make him wear like a purple Santa elf hat, and you got it, right? You didn't have to do all that stuff, but it does work. And there are moments when Green Goblin is like flying around on his glider, and it works, and it looks creepy, and it looks spooky, and it looks scary, but overall, Willem Dafoe nailed that role. I'm really excited to see him come back for No Way Home, and I hear that he is the main villain, as he should be, right? I mean, Norman Osborn is the Lex Luthor to Spider-Man Superman, if you know what I'm saying. That being said, Tobey Maguire does a great job of doing this like 60s version of Spider-Man. Yeah, he's not quite as quippy and jokey as he should be. Andrew Garfield, actually, his Spider-Man is a little bit more on the nose that way. And of course, Tom Holland's, but Tobey Maguire is able to really handle Peter Parker, and who's handled Peter Parker the best. And remember, before we can get an adequate Spider-Man, we have to have a good Peter Parker. Another movie that this reminds me of is Batman Begins. Great supporting cast. And an amazing performance where you build up the fact that Christian Bale is Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. This is Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield, to me, didn't nail Peter Parker whatsoever, but he nailed Spider-Man. But to me, that imbalance, it's just an injustice that I can't overlook. Tobey Maguire makes us believe in Peter Parker. So now the Spider-Man journey is even better. When he's discovering his powers, what an amazing turn of events. What an amazing journey to be a part of. I absolutely love this movie. I had to really think about this because y'all know I love Homecoming and I love the original Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe film. But y'all, when I put them up side by side, it's that original Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1. That's the best one that's ever been done. I don't have faith in No Way Home topping that. But I do have faith that this movie's going to wind up sneaking into the top 5. So we get to do this again next time they do another Spider-Man movie. Anyway, really excited for that movie. That's my top 5. What do y'all think? What's your top 5 favorite Spider-Man live action or animated films cinematically? Animated series are completely different thing. If you want to know real quick, my favorite animated series from Spider-Man is Sensational Spider-Man. It's really great, and it has the best theme song. Sensational, sensational Spider-Man. Anyway, that's my top 5. What are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Everybody go check out No Way Home, and then check me out on Rockin Robbie Live on Sunday night, because one of our bits is going to be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home, full-on spoilers review on Sunday night, so don't miss that. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Station. Keep on reading, and keep on swinging, slinging, and taking responsibility.